in the enrollment.
Yvonne, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's not letting us do it. It's not letting us admit them into it. It says action failed for some reason. I don't know if it's that we don't have permission or what, but last time we did.
So let me try. I just did an admit all for everybody.
That's what I did too. It said action failed.
Okay.
Let me see what I get.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Should I try to leave and come back and then maybe I'll try that and see if I can admit people.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple actions failed.
Yeah, I think it's because we've got a lot of folks trying to come in at the same time. All right, and we do have the recording on, so yeah, it's trying. So I'm not sure why, and I'm going to get my mic. All right, does this help with the sound? Sandy, can you give me a thumbs up if my sound is better?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so we have the recording on. I'm going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we were able to get folks admitted now. Sorry, guys, about the technical difficulties. Not sure why that happened this morning. So good morning for those of you that are joining us for the CARES Act office hours for the first time. I'm Yvonne Denome, and I am the Title I and CARES Act. I'm helping the grants team manage the CARES Act. So we have other members of the CARES Act grants team online. So if those folks could enter in and introduce themselves, that would be great.
So hi, I'm Sandy Grimes. I'm part of the team. We'll help answer questions. And I'm coordinator for the financial support team. Sorry.
Sabrina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. 1 second here. Get everything set up. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sabrina Boyd. I am the Grants Compliance Officer. You may have been familiar with Willie Jennings. He retired earlier in the year, and I came into this position back in September. So I am here as well to help Yvonne, who's highly capable of answering all your questions, but to respond in any way and support that I can.
All right, so we do have a few updates this morning. We do have the link to the CARES Act office hour rolling agenda, and so we're going to go ahead and start with an update on the asset tag. So I'm going to ask that everyone continue to complete and update your inventory forms. Please send those in to me, and then send me an email to let me know that you have placed your inventory forms in the school folder on the CARES Act server. However, there will be a delay in me sending out additional asset tags. Given the CFR funds have to be completely expended by December 30th, there is discussion underway about transferring some of the items that were previously purchased with CARES Act funds into the CFR. And what that would do then is, rather than sending out CARES Act asset tags, we would need to order CFR tags or CRF tags, because that pot of money came directly from the Treasury Department and not from the United States Department of Ed. So we may need to adjust where the asset tags are assigned. We know that we cannot mix federal funds, and therefore we may have to maintain separate asset tags. So we're waiting for more direction about what tag needs to go on those items. So please know that I should have further information at the beginning of January upon return from winter break, and I'll be able to provide an update hopefully at our next meeting, which is January the 7th. We also have, we've had some questions come in about hourly teacher and hourly technical, and at our last meeting there was a little bit of confusion between what could be charged where. And so our team, Sandy Grimes, has led the effort in communicating with HR. So Sandy, I'm gonna pass the baton, and if you could take a look at questions 2 through 5 on the sheet and talk through those for updates.
Where were the questions? Hold on, and in the chat, you mean?
In the CARES Act office hours.
Hold on, let me look at I didn't have them pulled up because I wanted to first talk about, got it. So I'm going to address which questions?
Questions 2 through 5. 2
through 5.
Yes.
I first want to talk about, before I'm going to come back to this, so hold on. I do want to talk about how the funds were allocated, because this is kind of a two-part process and this whole thing. So hold on, let me get to where I want to be to talk about the CARES Act funding. So when funds were allocated for CARES Act grant funding, basically what happened is you got money in hourly teacher and you got money in hourly technical. Now the hourly teacher, and I want to be specific in how I answer this, so bear with me a second while I get back to where we were at on this. The hourly teacher funds were basically allocated for staffing. Well, the hourly teacher were for continuity of learning during the summer, intervention workshops with parents on how to use digital software, off-contract lesson planning for intervention activities. Those kind of things were what you were allocated for hourly teacher. Hourly technical allocations were given to you guys for things like SIS updates, calling families to get updated addresses, master scheduling, laptop distribution. That was under hourly technical. So there's two things going on here. There's how the money is allocated, and then there's how you spend it and what you do time and attendance against. So I want to go back to answer the questions. So again, I'm going back and forth because I want to make sure I'm in the right place for answering the question. So can teachers be paid at hourly band 15 regardless of the activity they're doing? Yes, absolutely they can be paid at an hourly band 15 because they are an exempt employee and they can be paid at an hourly band 15. That being said, if you have a teacher doing technical activities, you can pay them out of the hourly technical at the pay band 15. HR has assured me that they can be intermixed basically. So one is, what pay band are you paying them at? And yes, teachers should get paid at hourly band 15 as they are a licensed teacher, and they're basically not going to work and get paid at a lower pay grade. So that was question number 2. Can teachers be paid out of hourly teacher or hourly technical, depending on whether the work they're doing falls under the intervention support part of the grant? Hourly teacher or communication scheduling? Yes, that's yes, they can, to answer that question. Either way, teachers are paid at the pay band 15 is basically what that means. If you have a teacher though that's handing out laptops, which is absolutely related to what we're doing, they could be paid out of the hourly technical, but at the pay band 15, if I'm making sense. So 3, can teachers be paid out of hourly teacher or technical, depending on whether they are doing on the work they are doing falls under the intervention support part of the grant? Correct. Hourly teacher or the communication scheduling part of the grant? Yes, that's what we understand. Either way, so again, kind of all these questions all fall under the same thing. I think what we have to be cognizant of is that when we pay teachers, we need to pay them at the pay band that's basically, because they're exempt employees, they would get the higher pay band. And we apologize if this has been confusing, and we're learning from HR too as we go. And because really they're the ones that handle time and attendance. So as we try to answer these questions for you guys, it can be very, very confusing to try to figure out what pay band you want to pay people. SBICs are licensed also, so you can pay them at the higher pay band. But again, we want to try to pay people at a pay band that is commensurate with the work they're doing.
And Sandy,
uh-huh.
Sandy, I want to interject here that in a discussion with the departments, that HR has provided the departments that same direction, that teachers have to be paid at pay band 15.
Right. And that is the direction HR is basically giving. And unfortunately, employees that are doing other work that are non-exempt employees, HR stops those. If you tried to pay an IA or an office assistant at a pay band 15, it's going to get stopped by HR. They're gonna say that you can't do that because they're non-exempt. So this has been quite the experience to try to get all the questions answered and make sure we're spending the money appropriately against the CARES Act grant funding and do it in the right way for tracking purposes and how the funds were allocated. So can IA's office staff and T-specs be paid hourly teacher. So basically, you could pay an IA or office staff using hourly teacher funds if they're supporting instruction, but you have to pay them at the lower pay band. Right? So again, the work, if they're non-exempt, they wouldn't be able to get that higher pay band rate. Number 5, how will we know if we have submitted time incorrectly? HR is reviewing. Yep. So it is a little confusing, and we need your patience with us as we work through these things to try to give you guys the best guidance that we can. And as we hear from HR and what's happening, because they're reviewing stuff as it goes through, they're giving us clarification, and we're trying to share that information with you. It is never our intent to give incorrect information. Ever. Was that it, Yvonne, or you said 1 through 6, right? So basically, you guys, it's just making sure we want you to use the funds. We want you to use it appropriately at the right pay bands for whether they're exempt or non-exempt. And then you can actually use the right pots of money based on how the funds were allocated.
So I want to answer Novita's question in the chat.
Okay.
She says that last week a teacher worked outside of contracted hours, distributed materials. Can she charge the CARES Act index sub-object in my time? And if she can, does she still need to submit the HR 11 and FS 174? The answer to that is you must, if she submits the my time, and that can still be entered as of today. The time would need to be entered in my time. You would need to provide the coding for that through the HR 11. So in this case, you have to do the HR 11, and the FS 174 must be completed. The in the upper right-hand corner on the description, you would need to put FS or CARES Act and family communication. And then on line 1 under activity, you would need to put the contractual hours. And then on line 2, the CARES Act hours. So as long as you're submitting the time in my time, when the window is open for the pay period, you must have the HR 11 and the FS 174. If the teacher missed the deadline for my time submission, then a correction memo needs to be attached in lieu of the HR 11. So anytime time didn't make it in towards CARES Act, then the correction memo would be needed in lieu of the HR 11. Kathy has a question. Any CARES eligible work must take place outside of contract hours? And the answer to that is yes. It must, because it is above and beyond. However, we know that there is hourly staff that is spending time directly in support of CARES Act. So in those cases, you may have an employee that would work operational from 8 to 12. Here's my example, 8 to 12, and then from 12 to 2, she's doing CARES Act, but from 2 to 4, she's 2 to 6, she's operational. So you have that fluidity, but the individual would have to put in their contractual hours or their operational hours on line 1 to be paid the supplemental CARES Act hours that would be recorded on line 2. All right, I'm going to look for hands that might be raised. So now I'm going to open it to the floor for other questions. Feel free to raise your hand or to continue to put the questions in the chat box. Christine.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My question is about warehouse orders for PPE. When I tried to do a PO for a warehouse order, it disappeared and I didn't know where it went. So I went ahead and I have ordered what I needed from the warehouse for PPE and I've spent all my money. But I've never done a PO, excuse me, for warehouse orders. So my question is, do I have to do a PO for that? Because the principal has to approve it anyway through Focus. So doing a PO is just kind of doing the same thing. So I'm wondering, do I go back and do POs for them? Can I just leave it the way it is with the principal's approval on there? Does that make sense?
Yes, Sandy, I'm going to defer that one to you. Is Sandy still with us? Nope, she stepped out. Christine, I'm going to say yes, as long as you're following the school procurement process. Just make sure that when you submit everything across from into the CARES Act folder, that you have all of your documentation.
Okay, and I missed part of that for some reason. It went completely silent. You said it's okay as long as and then I lost you.
It's okay as long as you are following your school procurement processes, right?
Okay.
And so you wouldn't have to go back and do that because you're following the procurement process that FCPS has in place.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
That's a great relief. Thank you.
My pleasure. Fran? Fran,
Hi.
are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So I just have a few questions, and it's really just kind of related on the how-tos.
Okay.
So, and I'm not sure if Sandy's not here, whether we'll have the answers or not, but the C3 hours that we utilized over the summer for laptop distribution and family engagement, are we able to do journal entries into our hourly technical for those?
Yes, you can. So your the time for that, I'm assuming that you charge that to operational. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what you would do is the journal entry process for that. And what you would still need to provide are the FS 174s. So you would have to have your My Time report. Your teachers would have to submit an FS 174 for each month. And I want to emphasize the FS 174 has to be completed on a monthly basis. So we can't do cross monthly, right? So if you paid your teachers in July and August, each teacher would have to complete an FS 174 for July and for August. You would need your, I mentioned that you would need your My Time report. You would need the FS 174s. The FS 174s would clearly, on the description in the right-hand corner, it would need to have CARES Act hyphen and then the allowable category. Family communication and engagement, right? That would fit there. Line 1 would need to be the teacher's contractual time. And I realized that they might have been out of contract, so you would need to put 0 for the contractual hours. And then line 2 would be the CARES Act. You'd have to have your teacher sign it. You would have to have your principal and or the principal's designee. And then because we are transferring time that happened earlier in the school year on school letterhead, we also have to have a memo from the principal acknowledging that the time spent for laptop distribution was approved and allowable under CARES. So again, the FS 174, the journal entry paperwork, the memo from the principal signing that he approves the time to be moved from operating into CARES Act. Great question.
Okay. And then we also, my other question goes back to warehouse entries and orders for PPE. If I have a request from the warehouse that is inclusive of cleaning supplies plus PPE, I'm allowed to do a journal entry just for the PPE portion of those, correct?
You could do the cleaning supply and or the PPE as long as the items that were ordered are allowable under CARES. And so in that particular case, I have been asked to review those and provide approval in advance. So if you want to gather your documentation and then either call me or email it to me for review, then what I will do is say thank you for submitting, approved, and then that way Sandy's team knows that I approved that order and everything within that JE is allowable within the CARES Act. Absolutely.
Okay, great. And then my last question, thank you. I went in and did an inventory form for Coates Elementary, and it has since disappeared. Is that what is supposed to happen? Like, does it disappear and go to someone else for asset tags, or is it still supposed to be there? I didn't know if it was like a systems thing where once I filled it in, it went somewhere for asset tags and then disappeared, or should I be able to still see my whole inventory form?
Okay, so my question is, when you completed the inventory form, did you actually do a save as and save it right in to your school folder?
I don't remember.
Okay. So my recommendation is, and we're having some problems with the form, that what is happening is folks are filling out the form, they're saving it in the school's folder, and then when you go back in, the form appears blank, right? And so what I've discovered is if I go in and I click on the spaces and then do all my tabs over, voila, it all miraculously appears. So I recommend you click on those folders. What I have been advising schools to do, knowing that we have that little glitch in that PDF, is to make sure that they are printing it and saving it as a PDF. So that when you're saving it or printing it as a PDF, it clearly allows you to see everything that you put on the inventory form. And so then once you place that on the inventory or in the folder, then send me an email and let me know that you've either updated or you've placed your inventory form in the folder. And what I'm doing right now is I have a subfolder and a list that I am recording everyone that has submitted an inventory form, so that when I am green lighted to begin resending out the asset tags for items, I know what schools are ready for my review and are ready for the asset tags.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And Alice, I see your question about, are you checking the school folder as we add items in there? Because I'm on pause, I haven't been checking them, but what I am asking schools to do is to email me and say, hey, Yvonne, this is ready for your review. And then what I'm doing is I'm saving all those emails into an asset tag holds folder. And then when I get the green light, I will reply to your email that the asset tags are in the pony to you. So that's kind of the documentation for communication that I've put in place to assist, since we're on hold with the asset tags. Great question, Alice. Other questions?
Warehouse purchases, did that question get answered? Because the PO's created in Focus, so there is a copy of the PO available in Focus for warehouse orders. It doesn't have to be a separate PO in TOPS, because the PO's approved by the principal, it goes through Focus, and the PO's created in Focus.
Right. And Sandy, in some cases, folks are creating it in TOPS just to make sure that they have my approval on it. But you're absolutely right that for warehouse, they could actually bypass that.
Yeah. Because those are the items that are on the approved list that you're ordering.
I see Alice asked, besides asset tags, I'm entering all my CARES Act warehouse purchases. Are the documents sufficient in there? So Alice, I will take a look at your folder. Please keep in mind that the items that must go on the inventory form are only those items considered equipment, right? So the thermometers, the sanitizer dispenser with the stands. If your school has ordered an electrostatic sprayer, any type of that equipment, and items that are valued over $50 should be placed on there as well. So I want to clarify that I know that some of the thermometers are under $50. Thermometers, regardless of cost, are they're considered equipment. So thermometers are a must regardless of the cost. Great, good question. Other questions? Sandy, my wondering is that Karen Kogan provided some warehouse updates at the middle school and secondary AA meeting. My wondering is, might you share the items that the warehouse will be sending out by the end of the month? Do you want to provide an update on that?
She said they were going to provide the shields by the end of December, and the disposable thermometer strips were being sent out also, and those were the little ones that go on the forehead. She did say that those are intended for classroom use to determine whether somebody needs to further, you know, somebody comes into class and you're not sure, they're meant to be used in the classroom, and then you would send them to the clinic or whatever to see if they remain in class or whatever.
Yeah, and I
But
believe
that's also being sent. And
I
that's the
think
only thing.
I think a case of hand sanitizer as well, correct?
Oh, correct. That's hand sanitizer. And they weren't sure how that was sent out, and that was intent for the front office, correct? For the to wipe everything down.
Yeah, there were 6 canisters of Flex
Yeah.
wipes that are to be used.
Or
Visitors.
they've been sent, so they should already have those.
Yes.
They just weren't sure what they were for. So they were
Correct.
for the front office.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we provided that update as well.
No, that's good. That's a good one.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the chat box. Jen said, I have a teacher that is 0.5 Title I and 0.5 through our budget. Do we list her time differently on the FS 174? So Jen, that is a great question. So HR is asking that we document all the different pay areas. So what you would need to do is to put 0.5 Title I contractual, 0.5 operating, and then her CARES Act time would go on line 3. So that's an excellent question. And the same holds true if you have a teacher that is traveling between schools. And Sandy, we have this at the middle school and high school. So might you talk about that, Sandy, in the event that we have any teachers traveling between schools?
So if we have teachers traveling between the schools, you need to work with the other school to ensure that we have the time on that PARS forms listed for that teacher at both schools. So that form has to be completely filled out for their time. And we're putting both on both forms at each school, correct, Yvonne? Yes.
And
both.
so
You would include 5 hours and put at your school 0.5 or 0.5 at the other school, and that's your regular contracted hours for that teacher. And then below that line, you're going to put another line for the hours that were worked for CARES Act grant funding. So you want to work with the other school to make sure that you both have it. We need to know how that teacher is paid regularly. And the way to do that is to include contracted at a 0.5 at one school and a 0.5 at another school. So you're going to include both of them on your forms, as is the other school.
And this is why the HR 11 is so important, right? So that we can document for compliance purpose that the teacher was provided the coding specific for the school for charging against CARES. So each, a copy of that form would need to be provided to each school with a copy of the HR 11 to make sure that that employee is charged against both schools' CARES Act funds instead of just the one. Sandy, Tasha put in the chat and she affirmed what I wrote down as well, that they also are going to be sending an additional case of hand sanitizer that it's supposed to be utilized for classroom, yeah. These are great questions, guys.
Very good, Jude.
Any other questions that you might have? Ashley.
Hi, I think 2 weeks ago I was able to ask about, oh my goodness, HEPA, like freestanding HEPA air filters for like front offices and things. Is there any guidance on which ones we should buy, or do we just buy them off Amazon? Like I didn't know if the county or had any recommendations.
Sabrina, I'm going to ask you to enter the conversation here, if you don't mind.
Okay, yes. So I don't have the specific type of filter, but I do know that Facilities has done some research and they have a list of recommended items. So you could reach out to either Tim Coleman over there, who's the financial analyst, or Mark, I'm forgetting his last name right now. But if you reach out to Tim Coleman, he could definitely put you in the right direction. They do have some recommendations on equipment.
Coleman, hold on, make sure I have the right person.
Tim Coleman. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I'll also interject that Facilities does have a list of the electrostatic sprayers. And so that list was sent to us as well. So if that's something you're looking to purchase, I can provide the list that Facilities looked at. I will name that the electrostatic sprayer, backpack sprayer actually, that Facilities purchased was about $1,700. But there are other ones that are far less and don't contain the actual backpack. So we can also provide that information as well if it's needed. Any other questions that you may have? No, thank you for your time today. What I am going to do is I will stop the recording here shortly, but our grants team will remain on until 11 o'clock in case other individuals join during this time. As we have done in the past, the recording for this meeting will be uploaded into the CARES Act office hours rolling Q&A. And all questions and answers will also be updated within the next 24 hours. So we thank you for your time. We thank you for coming with your great questions. And I'm thankful to each of you for all you're doing to ensure CARES Act implementation success across Fairfax. So we know it's a lot of extra work. But thank you for your due diligence in asking the great questions. So with that said, thank you for your time, and I will stop the recording.